Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to go over the animation engine I made for my Pygame script to show you how I made the animation of my character walking. Keep in mind this is my personal solution, so there might be other ways to do this, but this way worked for me. First of all, at the start of my script I have a bunch of blocks of code, and each one describes a single frame of animation. If you look at the sprite sheet I used for this game, you can see some of the single frames I used. Each block defines one of these frames. This first line defines the size of the frame. The next line blits the image from the sprite sheet onto the frame. Then the frame is scaled to size to fit the size of the level. Then a larger transparent surface is created and the frame is blitted onto that. Lastly, the frame is given a unique name. So here stand left would be this frame on the sprite sheet where Mega Man is standing while facing left. If I scroll a little bit further down, you can see the frames for step right, run right 1, run right 2, and run right 3, which is these 4 frames right here. If I loop through these frames, I can create an animation of the character walking. So right after each frame is defined, I created an array that holds all the frames. Having an array like this makes it easy to call the frames in order, like walk loop right 0, 1, 2, 3. Using an array makes it easy to loop through the frames, like in this for loop example. If this loop weren't commented out, then it would loop through each frame in the array and blit it to the screen at position 0, 0. Using a loop like this wouldn't really make a lot of sense in a game though, since all the frames would be drawn almost instantaneously. I need to be able to control how long each frame stays on the screen before it is updated. My solution was to create a custom loop using a counter variable. So first I create a variable called counter and set it to 0. Then I create a function to run my loop. Then I use keyword global to access the variable outside of the function. Then I use some if statements to test the value of the counter variable. If I call the walk loop function in the main game loop, it will call this function on every update, and will test the value of counter and then advance the counter by 1. So on the first update, the counter will be 0, which is less than or equal to 100, so it will blit the first frame of the loop. After more than 100 updates have gone by, the counter will be greater than 100 and it will blit the next frame. After 200 updates, it will blit the third frame, and after 300 updates, it will blit the last frame. If I ran this animation, it would probably happen fairly slowly, since it takes a while for 100 updates to go by. But any of these values can be changed to adjust the speed of the animation so that it fits better with whatever velocity the character is moving at. You might have noticed that I passed the array walk loop right into the function rather than just using the array in the function itself. This is so I can easily pass the walk left loop into the function, and it will animate the walk left loop animation at the same speed as it does the walk right loop. So now I have an easy way to animate the character moving left or right. So all I need to know now is which direction is the character moving. Is the character moving left or right? For that, I need to show you the script's code for handling input. This for e in pygame.event.get is the script input handler. If right is pressed, then right equals true. If left is pressed, then left equals true. These input values are all going to be passed to my animation engine through this avatar.update function. If I scroll down, I can show you what the animation engine does with these variables. After the update function, the variables are passed to this animate function, which checks the variables to decide what state the player is in. In this line, if the player is moving to the right, it will call the avatar.walkLoop function and pass the array walkLoopRight. This walkLoop function is the same function I showed you earlier, except now it has the right values for timing the animation that I actually use in my game. Instead of blitting directly to the screen, it creates a new surface over my character object, and then blits the frame to it. So whatever the character frame was, it just updates it. This way I don't ever have to worry about where on the screen I need to blit the image. The character already moves around the screen by itself, so whatever image it did have just gets replaced. Which is why the blit takes place at 0, 0, which would be the upper left-hand corner of the surface my character uses. To get a better idea of what I mean by this, I can scroll up a little bit so you can see how the character sprite object is created. When this object is created, it has a self.image property which is a blank transparent surface that's 300 pixels wide and 150 pixels tall. If I were to blit an image to this surface, that image would stay on the object until it is changed. You can see this in one of my early script examples for this project with the static image of Mega Man. The image is just drawn once when the script starts, and the image stays there. My animation engine just changes that image as the character moves left or right. Using the walk loop example in this video, you should be able to build similar loops for all states the player can be in. In my game, I have just one other loop for when the player is standing still, since being in the air only has a single frame. As far as defining what state the player is in to decide what animation loop to run, I used a set of true and false values where false false would be not in the air, not facing right. False true is not in the air, is facing right, but you can use whatever method you want. One other thing that's worth noting is under the left and right key up events, I reset the counter to 0. That way it will reset the loop to start at the beginning after the left or right keys are released. Other than that, there isn't much else to say about how the animation engine works. So I hope that this video was able to explain how to set up an animation engine in Pygame, and thank you for watching.